Hello, today we are going to discuss the poem Carrion Comfort written by G.M. Hopkins. This poem, as you know, deals with the theme of despair. Hopkins was frequently a victim of prolonged fits of depression and despondency. A number of emotional pressures exercised his frail physique to produce in him what may be called spiritual dryness or desolation, a state in which the soul feels conscious of a profound emptiness and destitution of the natural, temporal, and spiritual goods that are necessary for its comfort. To be thus spiritually dry and infertile, as if separated from his Creator, is for the religious man the very worst that can happen to him. In this sonnet, the poet records one such mood of spiritual agony. In the very beginning, the poet firmly refuses to abandon himself to despair. Despair may bring some comfort, but this comfort results from feeding on spiritual death. The poet rejects the temptations of the flesh. The fibers of his spiritual being may now have become slack. His vital energies may be ebbing away, but he will not helplessly cry, "I can do nothing now," because he believes that he can still do something. He can even now feel some hope. Daylight may still shine upon him. He can therefore resolve to be, that is, harden himself to face whatever he is in store for him. Then, after rejecting despair, the poet turns to Christ. At first, he sees Christ as a terrible monster and feels himself rocked to and fro, somewhat harshly by that right foot which wrings the world. He asks why Lord Christ treats him in this manner, threatening him like a lion hovering over his victim. The lion like Christ is scanning his bruised bones with eager eyes that seem ready to devour him in a moment. According to the poet, Christ is coming towards him like a mighty whirlwind. The poet is heaped like a pile of wheat, and against this pile the whirlwind of Christ will blow like a winnowing wind. This whirlwind is like a scourge for the poet, so that he is anxious to avoid it and flee from it if possible. But the whirlwind, that is Lord Christ, has a beneficent function to perform. The winnowing wind separates the chaff from the grains. The chaff is blown away while the grains remain. In the same way will be the effect of Christ's whirlwind upon him. That means, due to the powerful effect of Lord Christ, the bad elements inside the poet will be removed and the good ones will be kept. Christ will make him suffer, but his suffering will purify him of his imperfections. In the very act of kissing the rod and thus accepting God's punishment, the poet will feel strengthened by an unexpected feeling of joy. Amid the toil and coil or the sufferings and ordeals, the poet will recognize not only the rod, but God's hand which holds that rod. Thus, the poet will see the warmth of love behind God's wrath. He will then feel like laughing and cheering. But then the question arises in the mind of the poet, whom is he to cheer? Whom is he to applaud and admire? Is he to applaud Christ, who flung him down as though from heaven and who trampled him under his feet? Or is he to applaud himself for daring to fight with Lord Christ? Or he is to applaud both Christ and himself in view of an inner unity beneath the outer conflict between the two of them? This last is the true answer. The poet recalls a particular night which seemed as long as a year. It was a night when he wrestled in his mind with God. What a fool he was to have engaged in that conflict with God, when he should have fallen at God's feet in humble adoration. There is thus no reason for the poet to entertain any doubts about his relationship with God. In this poem, the poet finds himself confronted with despair, but he promptly declares his resolve not to take recourse to it. He must overcome despair and turn himself to constructive activity. However, a doubt attacks him. Why is God so cruel to him? Why is he subjected to what seems to him brutal treatment? Why should Christ, lion-like, threaten to devour him? So many questions arise in the mind of the poet. The divine wrath or the anger of Lord Christ, of which he is the victim, is intended to cleanse and purify him of all his imperfections and failings. He must therefore kiss God's corrective rod and through it God's hand which holds that rod. Through this attitude of submission and adoration, the poet achieves the comfort and the joy which he badly needs. His rebelliousness against God was all a mistake. The night of spiritual darkness, which he spent in great agony, was the result of his own short-sightedness. Thank you.